Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'd like to do is show you how to factor a trinomial when a is equal to 1. And basically, we're going to have a trinomial when a is equal to 1. A is, in this case, is going to be equal to 1. So a lot of times you don't see it. You just see a quadratic that's, or a trinomial, basically a trinomial that's in the form of x squared plus bx plus 1. Now, in this case, I'm using a trinomial that's a quadratic. But because the process of factoring a trinomial even with larger degrees is going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to use a quadratic. I'm going to use a simple term here just so we can kind of understand it, just at least the basic process. So I think it's easiest, however, though, to look at an example that would be something that you would see. Let's see. 3x plus 2. OK, so let's look at this quadratic. And again, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter if that was x to the fourth plus 3x squared plus 2. All right, it would be exactly the same. So this is a little bit more complicated as far as like the understanding of it. But here's kind of like your basic term that you should be more familiar with. But we're going to take this understanding so we can apply it to this to a problem that's going to be like this. Now, the first thing when we're factoring a quadratic, when we're factoring any type of polynomial, the first thing we always want to do is look into seeing what we can factor out as far as GCF. Now, in this case, we have our first two terms have x's, but our third term is a constant, which does not have an x that we can factor out. Then we look at our coefficients and our constant, and we try to see is there any common, common factors that we can factor out. In this case, we do not have any common factors. So we have no common factors to factor out. So remember, in factoring, what was nice about factoring out is when you divide, you automatically now have that whatever your quotient was, you have your quotient and your divisor that you can multiply to get back. But now we don't have anything that we can easily say, oh, this times this is going to equal this expression. So what we need to do is create something where we can identify our two factors or two expressions that multiply to give us this trinomial. And I like to call it just the diamond method because that's the way it's brought to me. Even though I don't use the diamond, I use like an x. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to take the value of c and we're going to take the value of b of our quadratic. So you can say b is equal to 3 and c is equal to 2. Then I like to put a dot up top, an addition symbol on the bottom, where the dot represents multiplication and addition represents, or the plus sign represents, obviously, addition. And what we're going to do is we're going to then fill in the values for b and for c. OK? And what those represent is just a visual aid. You don't have to do this. Preferably, you can do this in your head. But I'm showing you the long way so we can get a little bit more practice. Now, the idea is for us to identify what two factors, two numbers that multiply to give you 2, but then add to give you 3. And don't worry about positive or negative. Even though, yeah, 2 times 1 equals 2 and negative 2 times negative 1 equals 2, don't worry about that until we get to start getting to complicated problems where in my videos I kind of show you how to address that situation. But for right now, what we're going to do is we're just going to write down the factors of 2, which thankfully is just 2 times 1. So therefore, the only two numbers that multiply to give me 2 and then add to give me 3 are 2 and 1. So those are basically, ladies and gentlemen, our two terms that are going to be a part of our factors. Now, since these two expressions are going to be multiplied to give us x squared plus 3x plus 2, the first expression that they're going to multiply has to be x times x, because x times x gives us x squared. Then the second expression has to be plus 1 and plus 2, because 1 times 2 gives us 2, and x times x gives us x squared. However, as you guys remember from distributive property, you can't just multiply the 1 times the 2. You also have to multiply the 1 times the x. You can't just multiply the x times 2. You also have to multiply the x times the 2, which is also formally easily known as FOIL. So when I multiply everything, I get x squared plus x plus 2x plus 2. Well, when I combine my middle terms, I get x squared plus 3x plus 2, where I can verify that these two binomials, the product of these two binomials, gives us our trinomial. So therefore, I have now rewritten my trinomial as the product of two expressions, which are, in turn, binomials. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you factor a trinomial when a is equal to 1. Thanks.